Welcome everyone, and thank you for clicking on this video. It is always greatly appreciated. Today I am going to be reviewing Siege Survival Gloria Victus. And I will be doing this after 40 hours of gameplay, and there is the proof. Before I get into it, cast your eyes down to the bottom. I have split the YouTube bar into sections. Feel free, of course, to skip around and jump into whatever section you want to listen to. And if any time you find yourself enjoying this video, what I say, way I think, whatever, don't forget to hulk out on that subscription button. I would appreciate that. To make sure I do this video review justice, I split it into a number of sections, of course. The first one is the basic information on the game. Then the next one is my overall game experience. What was it like early to late play? And then regardless of what map you're on, there are always certain stages or parts to your game, a certain flow, and I'm going to look at these in turn. And the first one of those is the building crafting stage, the good and the bad of that. The scavenging stage, the good and the bad of that. And then the battles, and yet again the good and bad of that. I will then lastly go on to the general game dynamic. How does the game pan out? How does it sort of work together? And lastly, if you manage to get this far, or you've skipped right to it, I will just give you my overall humble opinion. Basic information on the game is this. Siege Survival Gloria Victus was released on Steam on the 18th of May 2021. Its developers are Black Eye Games and Fish Tank Studio. It will cost you about US $22. Steam user reviews give it a mostly to very positive rating. And in case you are wondering, Gloria Victus means glory to the vanquished. And this in fact is the name of a very famous piece of artwork by Antoine Mercier, a French artist created in 1874 after the loss of the French in the Franco-Prussian War, also known as the War of 1870. My game experience. Now this is not a review, this is just how the game was experienced by me. Note, I do not watch YouTube videos on tutorials on how to do things. I let the game speak for itself when I play these. And because of that, I found it really hard. This game is about scavenging very small amounts of resources and using them in the correct order in the right way. And if you don't do it just right, you lose. And I lost over and over and over again. It was pretty rough. It took about 10 hours or so before I finally managed to figure out what was going on and start to have some success. And I would say after that 10-15 hour mark, I then really started to enjoy the game. Now, as mentioned, you can split this game into three parts. The first of which is your time inside the castle walls. Now you cannot move your characters outside of the walls, and most of your game time will be spent in this facet of the game. And as you are playing it, you are always, of course, under siege, and from time to time the enemy are going to loose arrows, boulders, or hurl dead cows into your castle, and as such there is only a very small space which it is safe to build in. So primarily here you will use the supplies you've scavenged and convert them into making new workstations or upgrading them, or building various structures to help with your supplies, things like garden plots, rat traps and water collectors. Now when in the walls you are looking to do two things mostly. You've got to keep your characters alive and keep providing resources to the defenders, who they call the Bastion. The list of the things you can make is not extensive, far from it in fact, it is pretty limited, but each provides a good and well balanced boost to your supplies. Remember, for the most part, this game is about managing very, very limited supplies, so small boosts can make quite a difference. And that, in fact, is a core aspect of the game. To win this game on normal settings, you will need to provide significant resources to the defenders. You'll need to send them repaired armour, repaired weapons, food and water, but I'll talk more about that in the battles section. So when in the castle, I found every moment counts, every minute needs to be productive, you need to plan out absolutely everything. That all said, the building and crafting is very much a mixed bag. I found the order that you build and craft in the game, it's jumbled and doesn't work. So normally in these games you craft a workbench, then the gameplay flows for a while from that, the things that you can make you utilise. So you may build a workbench and then what you craft is used, and eventually you'll need to progress to an advanced workbench to produce more advanced goods. But I found here the logical flow was to always upgrade everything straight away. Resources could be so scarce that maximising these long term was vital. And this made the crafting, building flow, well, feel broken. It was not helped by the pace of the game. Your world is measured by the battles and these are relentless every 6 days or so, so the pressure was always on. Overall, I found this stage of the game quite engaging. It was a constant balance and juggle, and you needed to pay attention to things or you could quickly end up with starvation problems or no particular resource vital to repair defenders' gear. So despite the fact it is a bit broken, it is actually still quite enjoyable. The graphics are nice and clean in here. It's unfortunate when you upgrade your workstations they don't change, so there are some fundamental little issues they could build on, but it is quite enjoyable. Now in the scavenging stage, you're going to need to send one of your characters out into the city through a secret tunnel to scavenge supplies. On the first map or scenario, you go out at night into a city, and on the second map/scenario, you go out during the day into the desert. And the materials you find, you bring back to resupply your castle and use for crafting or building. But of course, it is a surrounding area that is wrecked and ruined by war, with piles of rubble to clear, dead bodies to burn, to get past them, whilst trying not to alert the patrolling guards. Now a good part is that the maps are really well done, they're well drawn, they're well laid out. But after a while you will learn where things are. You need to pay attention to the zones on the map, because each map has areas that provide more or less of certain types of resources, so knowing where these are and unlocking the tunnels close to them is really important. For example, when you need an influx of weapons, you want to go to the zones that have those and scavenge them. But again, it is a bit of a mixed bag here. The maps are, as I said, well done, and the game flow of exploration of them is good. And I should note here that when you loot something, it doesn't respawn. And that's important because you find yourself constantly being lured further and further away from your secret tunnel, and you end up pushing the envelope further each night. You go that bit further, and then you do a mad dash back to the tunnel before the timer runs out and before you get hunted down. That works really well. But the bad part is that the guards that patrol around are perhaps the most stupid bunch of soldiers I've ever seen. They walk absolutely predetermined paths that they repeat over and over, and you can walk right behind them and they are blissfully unaware of you, and when they do spot you and chase you, they are just like blundering buffoons and you can easily outrun them. This is such a lost opportunity here. Imagine random guards trapping you, guards that were a bit more aware. It would be absolutely fantastic. But regardless of the idiotic guards, the scavenging mechanic is really good and most enjoyable. It just could be a little bit more. So when push comes to shove, the game is about the battles, strangely enough, but it is just a text and graph battle. You never actually see anything, and when I first played I was pretty disappointed by that, but it's not as bad as you think. Now, as you would have picked up, the scavenging and crafting and building is a lot to do about supplying your brave defenders. And when I first started, I kind of thought I'd flick them the odd thing and that would be okay, but that, as it turned out, was a real fast way to lose the game. The battles are all about seeing what your bastion, that's the guards your defenders are called, what their needs and supplies are, and then giving them as much as possible of that. You need to provide the guards constant food and water, and I mean, who knew that fighting off a siege took so much energy? But also, as the battle commences, you need to rapidly repair their broken gear and get it back to them to continue the fight. So there can be a real tension in the battles as you see the numbers of attackers and defenders rise and fall, a tension to getting stuff to them really quickly because the battle does not stop. And the oddity is, you often have to do that to the detriment of your own characters that you are controlling. But all said and done, it is just text, and for the pivotal part of the game, it was just sort of lacking a little bit. I felt it could be a bit more. So when you put these different stages together, it all works quite well. The knowledge of a future battle, knowing that your bastion needs certain things, pushes you to scavenge in a certain way, in a certain fashion, and then to build certain things in a certain fashion to provide the bastion for the battle. There is this constant loop between the three stages, and the balance of these works exceptionally well. Now, I should note here that I've mostly in this review been talking about the core game dynamic, but there is more to it. In the second campaign, you will be pushed to repair a cog or a boat to escape a deadly sandstorm while still doing all of the other things. The story for both campaigns is pretty simple, but it's well done. Easy to read, the very cleanly drawn and engaging messages. The tutorial at the beginning of the game consists of pop-up messages, and these are very good. I found them very useful, nicely done, get the message across. It was pretty good. And then you have, if you get bored of everything else, you have a map and scenario editor where you can go in and modify the current campaign, make it easier or harder, focus more and less on the scavenging and other things, or you can create your totally own scenario from the ground up and even share that with the community. And when you win games, you get this storyboard that flows up on your screen telling about all the great things that you've done. Now, you do tire of that after you've played 10, 15 games, but it's really good. Now, if you've got this far, or maybe you just skipped right to the end, thank you very much, because here is my final, humble, overall opinion. Siege Survival is not perfect, but I found I quite happily sunk 20 plus hours into it with ease. Then perhaps it became a bit of a stretch and I was looking to extend the core game a bit. I've never played a game like this before, but I hear the concept has been done before by some game called This War of Mine. But for me, I was really taken aback, but in a good way, when I realised the game was not about me, it was about supporting your defenders. And when I was told off for doing a shitty job, that was quite a treat for me. I found that really funny. I certainly recommend this game if you enjoy managing resources, like to figure out how to maximize every moment, and you enjoy a challenge. I think that it's definitely not for everyone, but if you like laboring for one more day of survival, you like to make really stark decisions in desperate times, then you will love this game. Thank you for watching. I do have a Twitter and Discord. Check those out, be much appreciated. Stay safe. See you in the next chapter.